Welcome to Data Leadership for Everyone. I'm your host, Anthony Algmin. Everyone needs to harness the power of data. There's a lot involved in making that happen, and this show is here to make it all a little bit easier. Think of this as an audio advice column for all of your data and leadership questions. And we need more. So if you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover in a future episode, send an email to podcast@dl4e1.com or use our text and voicemail line at 773-888-2077. We're back, everybody. We are back, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you found us again, because if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, you found us again. We took a break. The Data Leadership Lessons podcast ran for 100 episodes. It was great. There was a lot of good content. There was a lot of fantastic interviews, and I'm really proud of what we were able to accomplish during that time. It was over a couple of years that we were doing that show, and it got to the point where I felt that it was a little bit formulaic. I thought it was a little bit of a pain in the butt to do, and it was it was hard to schedule interviews all the time and record it alongside a day job and all of that. So I took a break. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring anything back, and as time went on, as we went through the holidays and got into the new year, I felt I missed it. I missed having these conversations. I missed having the audience, and I missed helping to bring this knowledge that I've built over the last several decades to folks that don't have an easy outlet to get to some of this information. So I said, okay, well, how can I make a show that is going to be a bit more fun for me, a little bit more fun for the viewers and audience, and meet that threshold? You remember I had an episode that's kind of said goodbye. I removed it because I didn't want to confuse everybody because I brought it all back. I said in that it was a show, the Data Leadership Lessons grew into a show that I don't know that I would be able to watch myself. I would watch myself with my own time. And that's the bar that I said to myself, if I'm going to bring a show back or do something else, I want it to be something that I would listen to, something that I would spend my time on if I were someone out there who needed help. I think that's just the bare minimum that you should have for any kind of show. And it took a little while, and as I considered what I might want to do, as I realized I'd like to do something, kind of settled on this format. So what we're going to do with Data Leadership for Everyone is that, first and foremost, this is not just a show for data professionals. Like, this is not a bunch of data people talking to data people. This is about anybody who's doing anything with data anywhere in any organization anywhere, which is basically everybody, right? So this is a show for everyone. Okay, this is a show that there's going to be a lot of different topics that we're going to cover. Some of them will go more technical. Some of them will go more business. Some of them will just go off the rails entirely, which is a lot of fun because those are some of the most enjoyable episodes. Like, I remember we had a couple comedy video creators on at one time. We had another person who'd done a bunch of stand-up comedy. We've had a bunch of other topics that you wouldn't necessarily think about when you would think data leadership. And it's all part of that story. It's all part of this broader world of trying to understand what does data do for us, and how do we do things to make that data as valuable as possible? And in this show, we're going to explore all of that. So comparing this to Data Leadership Lessons, this show is going to be a little bit shorter. It's going to be hopefully about half the time, although I am known to go on a little bit. So feel free if you can handle. I talk fast on normal speed, so you may not be able to pull off the 2x speed on your podcast, but I'm sure you can listen to it a little bit faster than I do in real life. So the episodes will be shorter. This is going to be less about interviews and more about topics and addressing the data questions that people have. We're going to be thinking about these topics and really try to explore them together. Okay, so think of it as like consulting that doesn't cost you anything and is shared amongst our little community of data leaders and burgeoning data leaders, right? We're gonna just have that conversation together, and we're going to see where it goes. And we're going to have more fun. We're going to have more variety. We're going to have more unexpected topics. I may just go and when I'm at a conference, I'll just record something with somebody and we'll do it off the cuff. And we're just going to try to avoid falling into a rut of this is exactly how it goes, and I follow the same script every time and all that. No more scripts. I have notes, right? So, but we're going to definitely try to mix it up a little bit more. You're not going to know exactly what you're going to get. You're also not going to know exactly when you're going to get. So one of the things is I'm going to try to do more episodes, so they're going to be shorter. So I'm going to try to do more of them, but I'm not going to do it on a regular schedule. I'm going to just release these as as I make them. And they'll hopefully have a little bit of a backlog. You can listen to them when you want to. You can go back and listen to other ones. But hopefully we're going to name these episodes with the topics that we're going to discuss. Hopefully you listen to them all. Hopefully you love the randomness of it all, and it keeps it interesting. But if nothing else, you can go through the list and say, hey, this is the episodes that I really want to watch because it's a topic that impacts me. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to create a library of conversations about these topics that are relevant to folks in whatever capacity they have. And these conversations should last. These should not be something that happens and then goes away and next week it's no longer relevant. These are things that hopefully will last a little bit. So, we're going to try this out, and we're going to learn from what works, and we're going to learn from what doesn't, and we're going to make tweaks as we go. So we're going to change things. If you happen to do graphic arts, I could use some help with that, clearly, if you're watching this on YouTube. I do the best I can, but I'm definitely not an expert in that particular area. And so definitely would like any ideas that you have, please. And I can't stress this enough. I need your help to come up with topics and address questions. This whole concept of an audio advice column does not work unless I get the questions and have those feeds and understand what is it that's really on your mind, and can we talk about that? And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this episode. But that is really going to be important. So if you want to contribute, the best thing you can do is, the best thing you can do is tell everyone you know about the show. But the second best thing you can do is send in topics and questions for us to cover on the show. Actually, that might even be the first thing. So we're gonna jump into some content for today. We're gonna actually address a question, and we're just gonna see where this adventure takes us. So thank you for being on this ride with me, and I'm excited to be back, and I'm excited to have you here, and thank you all for the support and the excitement that you showed when I announced that we were coming back. So I really do appreciate that very much, and really, really excited to be doing this again. So today's question, we have Kim from a mid-sized bank. She asks, our data governance program has been going since last year, but we are having trouble getting people to show up to our council meetings. When we do have meetings, we don't have much to do because the council members usually don't have time to get their tasks done alongside their day-to-day duties. So what should we do? So, all right. This is actually, and I chose this question to start things off because this is such a common refrain that we hear from organizations that have been doing data governance for an amount of time. And a lot of this comes back to understanding, where does governance, data governance in particular, where does data governance fit into the fabric of an organization? And I said fabric, but now that fabric's a loaded term too, so we're not allowed to say that. I'm not talking about data fabric, so we'll save that rant for another day. But when we think about how data governance fits into your organization, the first thing we really want to understand, okay, so if we're doing these data governance meetings, the question that I immediately ask is like, okay, well, is your data governance program a solution looking for a problem? And by that, I mean, have you decided, we need to do data governance for some reason? And that reason was probably well-intended. It could be a compliance or audit review that said, hey, you need to do data governance. Or it could be like, hey, we're not getting as much from our data as we should do data governance. And so whatever that was a solution for, does the problem really exist? Like, is what you created your data governance to do, does that A, really exist? And two, is data governance the way you will solve that problem? I don't have that answer, but it's a question to ask, because you want to understand that with data governance, everybody who's involved typically has a day job that is usually, they've got a lot going on, right? So the day job takes precedence for most of the folks. And so when you say, hey, our folks are just too busy, to me, I don't believe that's true. Like, there's no such thing as too busy. There's just a difference in priorities. And those priorities may be very justified in that you don't get to the thing related to data governance because, and here's the question, what's the value for those data governance members? So if the data governance council members are busy and prioritizing other work throughout the month or the quarter, if you're doing quarterly meetings, what is it about that that's more important than them doing what they're doing for data governance? Because then you have to ask yourself, is data governance as important as we would like to think it is? And in your organization right now, it likely isn't. If it was, people would find the time to do it. And that's the question, is what's the value for those data governance members? Because it's one thing for data governance to be valuable to an organization, but when we're working in business, we don't work at the organization level. We work at our job level. We have a certain set of roles and responsibilities and things that we have to do as per our job description, as per our performance reviews. But when we do that, we are doing that because it will benefit us. It will also benefit the company, but we need to watch out for our own careers, right? We need to watch out for our own performance. Your performance review isn't about how the company did alone. It's about what you did to help the company. And so if the data governance activities are not driving enough personal value for those data governance members, then you have an imbalance there. So that's problem number one is there an imbalance of the data for the data governance members? Now, it could be the value could be something, hey, they're fixing or improving the data that they're also using, and then their part of the organization does better. Hey, that's great. That's exactly what you would want at kind of that organizational strategy level. But even at the individual incentive level, if no one at all that is supervising the data governance council members cares whether or not they were doing data governance council stuff, that's another imbalance, right? So if you're asking them to prioritize doing data governance work over their day job, when you know that their job roles and responsibilities don't actually have anything to do with data governance, it's probably not going to be sustainable. And that's what we often see when we stand up data governance in an organization without having that really strong value proposition, well articulated, well understood. If we don't have that, then it will tend to trickle off. You'll start to see, as meetings go on, you'll start to see less attendance at those meetings, and you'll start to see less participation in the work of the Data Governance Council because people got better stuff to do. And that's the thing. And so if you want to fix this, so the way you want to fix this kind of situation, and again, this is a quick advice column level response, so this isn't going to give you all the answers, but these are a few things I would consider. The first thing is understand, okay, you set up data governance for a reason. What is that reason? And more deeply, what are the data problems that are hurting your business? And be very specific about this. What are the data problems that hurt your business? Could be things like there's a lack of data trust or trust in the data. There's data quality challenges. You have duplications in your customer masters, whatever it is. But those hurting the business is something I want you to think deeply about. Hurting the business needs to be evaluated in terms of revenue, cost, and risk. These are business outcomes. Business outcomes generally resolve to revenue, cost, and risk factors. And that's where business success is really determined. And granted, a data problem is not likely to have a direct correlation to revenue, cost, and risk. So if you think about, let's use a simple example. If a customer master has, 3 different systems feeding into it, and you often have 3 different records for the same customer, what could cause problems to the revenue, cost, or risk? Well, there's a few different things. So one is on the revenue side, you may lack available insights into your customer, and so you may market to them inappropriately. The cost side, you could be sending multiple mailers or do other outreach to customers that are duplicative, which actually can also hurt your reputation because the customer's like, I'm your customer. Shouldn't you know that I'm one person? I don't need 3 of these each time, which actually does happen. And then the risk management side, again, if you don't understand your customer, you can't serve your customer to the best of your organization's true ability. And again, that becomes a risk to your business. So you can start to bring together that kind of chain of events, that value proposition, and understand, hey, here's where the things we can do with data start to react to or relate to the business outcomes that we have. And when that happens, we can start to estimate the actual cost or the actual revenue impact or the actual risk impact that we're likely to see. And now when you start putting dollars behind it, it's a lot more visible into an organization. And that's the thing that you need to really think about is when we think about the value proposition for your data governance program as a whole, how are we quantifying that? How are we understanding all of these efforts and how they play a role in your business success? Because if they don't play a role in your business success, there isn't value. And then that value, of course, people shouldn't be doing it. They're actually doing rational things by not participating. So if you think about the value of your data governance organization and what you're really trying to accomplish with data governance, what is that problem that the solution of data governance is really driving towards? Quantify it. Create, if you haven't, what is your expected return on investment for your data governance program, realize, hey, there's a cost to the people's time to participate in data governance. There's a cost to answering these questions. There's a cost to cleaning up data. But there should be value that is also, if not directly quantifiable, something you can estimate, something that you can start to put numbers behind and be deliberate and say, hey, here's what we're working with. Here's what we understand. As a data governance council, can you quantify this better collectively? And will that create balance in what you are asking from your data governance council members so that they can justify and potentially include in things like job descriptions or roles and responsibilities more formally their participation? So you're looking for, and at the kind of high level, and I know like this is going to be how this goes probably, is it's going to be kind of a meandering answer, but hopefully gives you some nuggets to think about. But at the high level, what you want to think about is, how do we create balance? Creating balance in any of these organizational processes, systems, teams, what have you, you need to have a balance of what are you asking these folks to do, and how are you giving them the tools they need to do that? And further, what's that value proposition that drives all of this, right? What is it? Why are you doing this? Always ask why. I had a great mentor early in my consulting career who, after I'd given this, what I thought was a wonderful presentation around data governance, he comes up to me, he's like, so what? So why do I care about this? What do I do? And I felt like, oh, yeah, I kind of implied that this is important, but never actually said why data governance helps. And that really influenced my perspective on things for a long time. So ask that question yourself, too. Ask, so what? So if we do this, what happens? If we do this, what's the impact to the business? If we do this, why is this more important for these data governance council members to do than what they would be doing otherwise, which is clearly what they're doing already. So things to think about, questions to ask. This is going to be a show where we don't have all the answers. We don't have many answers. We have a whole lot of questions, but there's ways to think about these things. So that's what we're going to try to unveil through these episodes, is we're going to try to understand, how do you approach this situation? How do you think about this in a way that gives you the answer that you can then go and do something? So when you think about this, think about balance, think about how do we balance that empowerment and accountability that we have for those data governance council members, for others involved in our data governance efforts, and just try to think about things as objectively as possible. It's probably not personal that the data governance members aren't doing everything we're asking of them. There's probably systemic challenges that are coming into play. So for that, hopefully that gives you some things to think about. I really appreciate the question. And again, all of you out there, you want better topics? Send in better questions. That one, though, was very good. So again, welcome to Data Leadership for Everyone. I really am glad you're here. And again, this podcast is called Data Leadership for Everyone. But if you need some data leadership for you, send an email or give me a call. Like, the email address is podcast@dl4e1.com, or use our text and voicemail line at 773-888-2077. If you're interested in being a guest to share your wisdom or discuss a particular challenge you're facing, reach out and we'll make it happen. You can send the topics in. We can talk about them like we did on today's show. We can have you on as a guest. If you have a topic that you are just so passionate about, and some of you out there, I'm going to be calling you to talk about some of these topics, please reach out. Like, I want to have this be a dialogue, and I don't want to ask everyone to just listen to me rant for 20 minutes every week. That's just not going to be a good idea for anybody. So, some weeks that'll be fine. But let's get some other folks on the show. Let's explore. Let's figure out how can we leverage this podcast mechanism to explore some of these topics in unique ways and collectively do some better stuff with data and help our businesses. So again, I'll add to that too. Like, I'm always looking for content for the show, but I'm also happy to meet with anybody to just talk directly about your data leadership challenges. I love this stuff and I want to help you however I can. And some cases it's good for the show. Some cases it's not appropriate for the show, and I get that as well. I just want to be a resource to you, and if we can have a conversation and I can learn something and I can help you in some way, happy to do it. So again, you can send an email to email or text voicemail, or you can find more resources at dataleadershipforeveryone.com. That's also where you'll find all of our past episodes, all the data leadership lessons episodes, as well as the videos. So what's exciting about our new hosting for the show is we also have the videos available through dataleadershipforeveryone.com. So if you don't like going to YouTube directly for whatever reason, you can go to dataleadershipforeveryone.com and access the videos there. We'll also have links to different trainings and other things like that if you're interested in exploring those. So again, thank you for being here. We're going to be on this adventure together. Please come back and tell all of your friends and colleagues and even strangers on the street about this show. And let's get more questions and let's see where it goes. So until next time, be good to your data, be better to your business, and be best to your people. Now go make an impact. Thanks, everybody.